Hello, fans. This is Pittsburgh Pat, and I am here with Lukas, also known as Kelf1. Lukas, how are you
Hello.
today?
I'm good. I'm good. How are you today?
Cool, cool. So, if you guys know me, I'm a YouTuber. We just passed 14,000 subscribers on the channel, so really happy about that. So that's a big landmark for us. Here, I say us, meaning me and the mouse that's in my pocket, because like this is a one-person operation. I do it all, and I think that Lukas, you do the same thing, but you're mostly focused on Twitch. Is that right?
That is the case, yeah. I'm over twitch.tv/Kelf1, do weekly streams, be that video games, my live plays, or my D&D and chill sessions where we just hang out and talk about D&D stuff and just, have fun.
That's exactly what we're going to do today. We're going to talk about D&D stuff and chill out. So that's what this video is about. And
Beautiful.
yeah, we appreciate like subscribes, and I'll put all of
Yeah.
Lukas's pertinent links in the description box. So we met through a mutual friend, Ryan Doyle of the Vertigree table. And Ryan and I have been gaming together in person lately, and we do these little talks after our sessions about he DMs. I'm a player, but I'm also a DM in other aspects. And we talk about the new rules. We talk about, what happened during the session. And I think it helps people because I get some good feedback from those videos. So are you currently in a D&D campaign at all? Or
I am. I actually run 3 games
oh wow.
and I play Uh, so I play in a Pathfinder game, so not technically D&D, but I mean still in the same vein.
Totally.
But yeah, so I run 2 games that you can actually find on my Twitch channel, and if you go to my YouTube channel, you can actually find the collection of all of them because I generally move everything over to there.
Cool. What's the name of
Um,
your YouTube channel?
it is youtube.com/Kelf1. So
Okay.
pretty simple.
Yep.
Same thing as my Twitch. Yeah, so I run 2 campaigns online that you can watch there. There's the Fandolin 5, where there is 6 of them. Um, even though they are the Fandolin 5, we know that there are 6 of them. It is an adventure that has taken place over the last 3 years. That campaign has been going on,
Wow.
where they are dealing with the cult of the dragon kind of imposing their will within the surrounding areas of Phandalin. So it's been a fun adventure there, all kinds of chaos and mischief. The second one actually is a new campaign that we only started recently, which is based on the old third edition Scales of War campaign,
Hmm.
that I got a lot of inspiration from Mike Schley because he was the artist who did the maps for it, and I love his maps. And I decided to kind of use a little bit of that as structure, but we haven't fully committed to it yet because we're only still at level 2, and
Okay.
they are just going into Castle Rivenroar, and we've already kind of diverged from what my mind was already set on, and I'm loving it so much because I play with a lot of good friends, people I've been playing with for 10 years, and there's always some kind of chaos going on. And then I also run a in-house game, that started at the Penn Hills Library. In fact,
Hmm.
I used to run it live there. But scheduling kind of made it unrealistic. But that one started with the Dragon of Icespire Peak, but has evolved into a campaign where there is a cult that worships the god Mask, and there's this shadow energy, and they're wanting this cult wants to bring a shadow dragon to the world.
Oh my.
And so a lot of the players have ties to the shadow cult, so there's a lot of like history, and there's a lot of kind of mystery about who they are and how they connect to one another. And it's so much fun. And then yeah,
Cool.
I
So you're really involved. I mean, yeah, I thought I was obsessed because now I've got like I had a Spelljammer campaign last night, Tuesday I have a regular D&D campaign. The Spelljammers every 3 weeks, month. It's when we
Hmm.
can. And I do Adventure League every other
Oof.
Thursday in-house. And then I teach like 6 weeks sessions after school at two different institutions and then summer camp.
Oh,
So,
nice.
so let's talk to people though that are like, oh my God, you guys are nuts. Now, like, how do you schedule real life and still make time for these things? I mean, this is a practical thing. I think people they might feel overwhelmed, but like, because I know like you just recently had a child, so like
Yep.
that's a big time commitment there. So how do you
That
keep the
is.
other stuff happening?
Um, honestly, it's just about I mean, I hate to say that it's about making sacrifices, but to kind of some degree, it is like I definitely put aside I try and focus the games the days that I run my games at on Sunday.
Hmm.
Normally Sunday evening, that's whenever I run my two online games, and then it's every other Saturday for my other one. But it's honestly just about kind of utilizing what little time you have to really focus on the key things that you need to get done. I spend a lot of nights from the time that the baby goes to sleep about 9, 10 o'clock. I will be up till about 2 in the morning working on stuff. I'm a night owl, so it works for
Gotcha.
me. I have my collection of books next to me, and I'll sit there with all my websites open and the different resources that I have, and it'll be kind of one of those things where for those 2, 3 hours at night, I'm going through and figuring out what I want to do and looking up the new things, and
Well,
just
let's get a little geeky. What are some of the websites that you use? Because I know I have a couple favorites.
well, I mean,
Is there
definitely
anything you would recommend to like a new DM? Like, hey, here, this will save you like an hour of time just using this.
there is one. It is a bit of a touchy subject depending on who you are.
Hmm.
It's a website called 5e.tools.
Sure.
It has seen its way into some controversy in recent times because it is a site that has access to a lot of materials that is published by Wizards of the Coast. Now the key thing about the site is that as a lot of sites would list, it is something where if you have access, if you own these books, like I physically own, all the books next to me that I need, and if I need to access them in a digital format, I can access them on there. And obviously there is always that issue of pirating,
Yeah.
but the main thing for me there is, and the main way that I utilize it is more as a information grabber.
Right.
There's a digital DM screen on it, and the nice thing about it is it has various sized panels, and you can click those, and in them you can actually reference out to different pages on the website that list different rules or different terms. Specifically the ones that I can't really remember off the top of my head whenever I'm running is like travel pace or falling speed off the top. I
Mm,
mean, I think falling
hmm.
speed is 1d6. But like, what are the rules of cover? What's the rules of jumping?
Sure.
How much does a dagger
Sure.
cost, and
What's
how
the
much is
difference
a
between a vertical jump and a long jump? Like, how do you kind of protect
exactly?
that? I mean, that's stuff that's there. It's just
Yeah.
not something that necessarily comes up all the time. So we don't have it in our heads, or we have a good rough estimate. We could
Hmm.
probably fudge it if we had to, but sometimes it's nice to know for specific,
Yeah.
locations. If you want to make a puzzle or a obstacle or a trap or something like that, and you want like somebody who's athletic maybe to be able to jump out of the pit trap but a halfling like
Yeah.
is probably not going to be able to do it, but the but
Right.
the the rogue might be able to do it. The elf
Yeah,
rogue
that
might be able to do it.
that halfling bard with an 8 to their strength score isn't going to be doing any high jumps anytime soon.
No, probably not. Probably not.
Um, but yeah, so that is honestly like one of the biggest sites in me that I use, just because it's where I can reference everything at the drop of a hat.
Nice.
When I'm running my games, I usually have that pulled up so that I can quickly reference things. There's a big community that's built up around it that has put their own materials on it. But beyond that, I'm, just a huge proponent of D&D Beyond.
Nice.
I know that Wizards, the whole during the OGL thing, there was a lot of controversy around D&D Beyond, because there was, they were talking about raising the prices and everything, and that was kind of where a lot of people left, and that, you hit WotC where their wallet hurt. But just the digital character sheets and the resources on there have made the game exponentially more accessible, in my opinion,
Yeah.
to a digital format and a digital community than ever before. And honestly, I think that's the greatest tool that we have.
I like one that's called fastcharacter.com.
Oh,
Fastcharacter.com is really nice for generating really quick NPC character sheets, or for kids like that maybe don't have the math, but they're like, I want to be elf wizard, or I want to be an Azamar, like they see these names somewhere, and and I'm like, okay, well, if we generate that from scratch, it's going to take us an hour. So let's just pop, you want to be level 3, and here's your
yeah.
subclass, and boom, all of a sudden you have a character sheet in 10 seconds, and it does the rolling for you and everything. It's supremely awesome. So that's a
I've
great teaching tool for me.
Yeah, I've never heard of this, and I just pulled it up and it looks great.
Yeah, it's pretty solid at what it does, and it's super fast. And you can do it on your phone. And the only
Yeah.
thing is you can't export things as PDFs as far as I know, but you can print. If you can print from your phone, you're good. Um,
Okay.
yeah.
You
So
know,
so
another great website that I just remembered,
Mhm.
because I was looking through my D&D folder, and one that I use a lot for referencing gods. It's called thievesguild.cc.
Okay.
It has all kinds of generators on it. It has all kinds of random lists. There's
Nice.
like spell lists, there's random equipment. You can actually do like harvesting stuff if your players are really into like monster hunting, you can like get the parts off of them. It has a lot of resources for DMs, like tavern menu generators,
Ah,
NPC generators, and that's what made me think of it, because that's where I normally will pop up an NPC, because you can put in like what their race is, what their class is, and then it just gives you enough to kind of know how to play them. Like, it gives you a
yes.
brief description.
Yes.
But the thing that I love about it is it normally gives you a very short one sentence plot hook for them, that you can decide to play in or you can ignore. And what I have done in the past is I've actually used that plot hook just to like write an adventure for the day, if I have nothing really major planned, or if my players are just kind of exploring a town and wanting to know what's going on. I'll just do 3 or 4 of those, and then we'll see which one they like, and then kind of explore that more.
Nice. I love that. I love those random generators. In fact, I just did a whole series, Vicious Mockery, using a Vicious
Mm.
Mockery fantasy insult generator.
Oh,
And then me
yes.
doing some voice acting, and just, doing things like, I did a whole, like, hundreds of them. So
Oh,
so of
beautiful.
course I can't come up with one. But that's the
Yeah,
thing. You're sitting at the table, you're playing the bard, you're casting Vicious Mockery, and you
yeah.
want to say something witty, and you can't think of it. And so now I'm like, okay, somebody can just cue up this short and just like play it at their table, and then
Oh, that's
use
beautiful.
my voice, and then just have it so that they don't have you can so they can meta play the bard. They don't have
Right,
to
right.
actually come up with the witticism. But those
Oh,
are
that's
fun. And
Yeah.
that, yeah. So speaking of which, we got into the bard a little bit, and that's one of my favorite
Mm,
classes to play.
mine.
Which
Yep.
what's your favorite?
That's it right there. You nailed it. It's the Bard.
Yeah.
I have always loved the Bard. I have played numerous bards. In fact, my Pathfinder character, he is a Shuni, which I don't know if you know what the Shuni are.
No, tell
Uh,
me.
so Shuni are, I think it's as described on like on their description as here it is, diminutive humanoids that resemble squat bipedal dogs. And basically all the art for them is pug people. And
Oh,
one thing to know about me is that I love pugs. In fact, I don't have a great way to showcase it, but I have a pug
at
sleeping
your
at my
foot.
feet right now, because that is my little boy Bo.
Oh,
And so I actually based my character off of him.
mhm.
So he is Bo the Bard, and he is a he's a very scared little guy, but he puts on a big voice. And when he's
Nice.
pressured, he kind of falls back and relies on the bigger dogs to do the work and to do the barking. But he's definitely the one who's in the back, like cheering them on. And so that's kind of the character that I play, where he's a very small, diminutive kind of character, but he cheers on his allies and he keeps them going. And then there's moments where he finds that big bad bulldog inside, and he'll use his fear abilities and he'll try and scare people. Um, and I've played, so I play him right now, and I absolutely love that character. I played a Warforged Bard from level 1 to 20 in a
Wow.
3-year long campaign, who I have a picture of him hanging on the back of my door. So I get to see him every day. His name's Cooper. He was a coin operated kind of Chuck E. Cheese robot that was installed at a gnome war camp. And after the war, he was kind of like thrown off to the side. And one day, unknown magics happened and he awokened, found himself in a new world, and was kind of looked down upon because he was a warforged, and he wanted to kind of show that his there's a place for him and that he wants nothing but to show people love. He was a glamour bard, and I think I gave him levels into warlock, because I think he was also a celestial warlock to some degree, or a
Yeah, there's a very
sorcerer.
powerful build with like one dip into warlock, one level dip. You
Yeah.
start as a warlock and then you go to bard and then you're like a fighter bard. That's not the one you're talking about. You're talking about being a
Hmm.
glamour bard. This one's like, you're a swords bard and
Oh, okay.
you have the hex blade.
Oh, yeah, that would make sense because yeah, you're
Yeah.
buffing into your charisma.
Yeah, exactly. You get to use charisma as your attack skill, so that's
Yeah.
like it's huge. But I haven't built one of those yet because the new book just came out when I found out about that, and so now I'm
Ooh.
building stuff with the new rules. But yeah,
So,
bards are great because you can do so much. You have jack of all
mhm,
trades.
exactly.
Your skills are like off the hook.
Well, that's always the best part, is like it's a class where if you it's a great, in my opinion, Bard is such a great class for every skill level of player. If you're new to the game and you don't know exactly what you want to play, try a Bard out, especially with the 2024, or 5.5, whatever you want to call it.
Right.
um the fact that all the subclasses kick in at third level now, it gives you those first two levels to kind of get a taste of what you want to do.
Exactly.
And do you want to be more of a melee fighter? Do you want to be more of a spellcaster? Do you want to be more utility? Do you want to be more support? And being that the rogue, or I mean, being that the bard has that jack of all trades ability where you can kind of fit into whatever niche, by third level you kind of know where you want to be,
That's
and
right.
you can take the subclass that's appropriate for you. And I think that's what's so great about it, because if you just don't know what you want to do, you get that time to figure that out, and it gives you such a breadth of options. You can be a fighter, you can be a cleric, you can be a rogue, and you can be a wizard.
No, it's true. And I think the great thing is in those first two levels, if you're, especially if you're playing with a new party, if you're a new player in a
Mhm.
game, like if you're the new person at the table, or if all of you are starting a new campaign, you can see what the dynamics of the party are and what do
Yep,
they need, right? So do they need somebody to
exactly.
buff the fighters, or do they really need, are you the face of the party? Are you the guy that goes to the mayor and gets the quests and takes credit for what you didn't do and does some
Yeah.
deception work, and or are you going to leave the deception to the rogue? Are you, it gives you a chance to fill in the gaps. And I think
Mhm.
one of the things that Ryan and I talk about a lot on our discussions is managing parties, and as a DM, like managing party expectations and making sure that every person at the table feels like they're contributing in each session,
Yes.
like giving them their hero moment. And
Hmm.
so for an experienced player, playing a bard is great too, because then you realize you don't have to step on anybody else's toes. You can see where
Exactly.
they're going, and then you can do the dance, you can find the part of the dance floor that's unoccupied.
And that right there, that point is exactly why I love playing them. In my professional life, I'm a manager, so I spend a lot of my days, teaching and leading and guiding. And when I'm sitting down running games, I'm doing very much the same thing. I'm teaching, I'm leading, and I'm guiding. So when I have the opportunity to actually play, getting to play a bard means that I get to be that cheerleader. I get to be that one who's standing off to the side saying, "Okay, hey, like you're the fighter and you're going to be great at it. And you're going to have these moments and I'm going to be there to cheer you on. And you're the cleric and you're going to be out there doing your divine magic and I'm going to be right there behind you, and this way I can take in the spots where I need to, but the rest of the party can shine like they need to."
Yeah, I mean, you're really usually, unless you're a swords bard, you're not up front in
Hmm.
like battle. You're like giving your inspiration dice here and there, and you get to like do some really fun color commentary. You get to do like to add the flavor to the like, because especially if you're playing with a kind of DM like I like to be, which is like I make people describe, or I give people the opportunity to describe how that happens. So like when they
Hmm.
say, well, I'm giving him bardic inspiration. Okay, how?
Yeah, what do you do? What does this look like?
Are you literally cheering it? Are you using words? Are you doing
Mhm.
it that way? Or are you doing it some other fashion? Like,
Yeah.
and think of the senses. I always tell the kids, think of the senses. So like you could give somebody inspiration by giving them their favorite cookie. You could, so then it's a taste thing. You could
Yes.
do it based on like you have this perfume, this scent of this exotic flower that inspires people to do great things in battle. You can just make stuff up, like of course
Yeah.
with a bard, it can always be music, it can be poetry.
Yep. And that's the bard, a bard that I played in an older campaign. His name was Lukas Powalski, and he was a chef. He was a sandwich maker.
There you go.
I have a deep love of sandwiches. I like experimenting with different foods, and sandwiches are my favorite thing in the world. So I made this halfling. He was a hospitality halfling bard, and his whole thing was that he made finger sandwiches, and that was his inspiration.
There you go.
When he was giving you inspiration, he was throwing you a sandwich, and it might be have some pastrami on it, and this is the one that's going to make it better for you to attack. It might have some ham, and this is going to be one where it makes you a little bit faster. And yeah, that's it. It's all about flavor, and flavor's free. You can
Exactly.
always change it up how you want it. And as long as you're not going so out of the realms of conceivability, like play it up, do it however you want, make it your own. And that's the beautiful thing about any class, but it very much comes into play with the bard, because you have so many different ways that inspiration can work. Um, Funny enough, my last game in my Pathfinder campaign, we were fighting a monster that used a sphere of silence against us, and I was trying to figure out a way. I was making sure that my there's a spell called Courageous Anthem where it gives everyone a +1 to the things that they do, and it's one of those things that Bo always does on his turn. He just keeps everybody going, and I was like, well, how am I going to do this because I can't sing? So I was like, you just see him pull out a piece of paper and he writes on it, "You got it, guys," and he held it up above his head, and that was his whole thing. And he
Yeah.
shot his phase bolt and he held his sign, and that was it. And it's just about that. Having a creative mind to come up with stuff like that is really fun.
Yeah, it's fun. And I like to write, like when it's not my turn and I'm a player character, and I'll sit there and try to write like alliterative phrases based on the other characters' names, or
Hmm.
try to write a little bit of like rhyming couplets or something like that. I come back
Yes.
from a writing background, and then pull them out at the opportune time, or just quote popular songs and steal their lyrics whenever something happens. So, but the one bard I play, he has a harp, and it's an intelligent harp, and
Oh,
it's in
interesting.
fact more intelligent than he is. So it thinks that it should be, like it thinks it should be a 6 foot tall harp, and meanwhile it's about this tall. So he
Oh,
can put it
beautiful.
under. It has a very big ego, and it claims that the only reason that Braggadocio is the name of the character. The only reason Braggadocio is famous is because of the harp, and Braggadocio, and they have, so Braggadocio and Anastasia have this. They'll have conversations amongst themselves sometimes where that will inform his decision to do something or not to do something, just to be contrarian to her. So he's basically like the foolish hero who rushes in before he thinks, and
Okay.
somehow gets lucky and talks his way out of it, or
Oh,
or he's
beautiful.
like high in charisma, high in dex. So
Hmm.
so and then intelligence is a dub stat, and he's not that strong, and he's not that wise either. So he succumbs to spells all the time, and that makes for some fun stuff too.
It does. It does. You have to have chaos. You have to have some amount of chaos.
Failures I find are more memorable than successes.
Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, I've for years I've tried to push my players to understand that. It's they yeah, so much story happens because of failure. Character development happens because of failure. That's where it's birthed out of. I mean, you learn more when you make mistakes.
Or when you allow the, like you were saying, when you allow the circumstances of the campaign to influence your character. So in the Saltmarsh campaign that we're playing now,
Hmm.
um, uh, Ryan is the DM. He's very lethal. And he's merciless. So we had almost a TPK on the first session. Two of us died, one came close, and one person survived unscathed because he was smart enough to stay back from the well where the giant snakes were like living.
Yeah.
And the giant snakes bit us and we died of poison. So anyway, now he has made it so that his character has a snake phobia, which, you know, there you go. So
Yeah.
like, I mean, take that, run with it, use it. Maybe that's something he's struggling to overcome, or maybe it's something he avoids now, or he'll see a length of rope and he has a flashback to a snake. And, so think of those kinds of things that the campaign affords you to give your character depth.
Absolutely. You know what? I had a similar case with, you said, a well. There was a very tenuous moment in my Pathfinder game where Bo was looking down a well, and there was it was like slick, and we were looking down it, and he fell into it. Nobody was around him, because we play on a virtual tabletop, and we use Foundry, and I have a tendency to move Bo around the map and kind of like separate him from the party a little bit. And I was like looking down this well, and my DM stopped, and he's like, "I need you to make a dexterity save." And I made it, and it was a low roll, and he fell into the well, and he's yelling up, and there's uh there's this hydra down in this thing, and so he's totally scared. They eventually hear him calling out. He was able to hide, and he was calling out, and they eventually rescued him out of there. But after that, he didn't go near anything that was like a hole in it. And it was kind of like that was his fear. Was I was constantly asking, like, is this a hole? Is this a thing that I can fall into? And I eventually got a spell called Inside Ropes, where you can you can actually pull out a length of your own intestines and use it as a rope, and it helps you attach to a wall. And I was like, Bo's taking a lot of these like weird, kind of crazy spells. I'm like, it would make sense that he would manifest some internal way to rescue himself if he fell down into one of these holes. So I took Inside Ropes, and so now he's if he's ever exploring, he can kind of fasten himself to a wall and
Yeah,
use
tie
it to
himself
rappel
off.
down. Yeah.
Well, it's smart.
So
I mean, like, if you're going to go outside and do some roofing, like tie yourself off to something,
exactly.
Yeah, that's great. I love it. See, I would have gone with Featherfall, but inside
Mm,
ropes is way cooler, like
yeah.
Featherfall's the obvious solution. So like that's the great thing too, is like, eventually these characters come to life, right?
Hmm.
So they eventually have their own inertia. Kurt Vonnegut
Yep.
used to talk about that. He's like, I create these characters and then sometimes they're on these big, long elastic bands. I can sort of guide them in the same direction that I want them to go, and they will follow that. But they have an
Interesting.
elasticity, and that inform. You know what I mean? I can't precisely control them anymore, and that's when
Huh.
you've created a dynamic character, right?
That's a
So
really interesting way to put it. I never really thought about that, but I like that term.
yeah, Vonnegut
Where
was fun.
Yeah, that's a cool way to put that. Like this is the character is going to do what the character is going to do, and you're guiding them as much as you can, but yeah, I mean, if they're a living character, then because that was the phrase I always use, is make a living character.
And
Like make a character who would make their choices based on the life they lived.
And in a larger sense, that's exactly what we're doing as DMs, right? So we're
Yeah.
like in a room with 4 or 5 or 7 other
Mhm.
people at the table, and they're real people who have real motivations, and they're going to play their characters. Somehow that's going to inform their characters, what their real life background is, and then what they want to do. So some people are actors, some people are going to look at the math, they're engineers, some people are
Yep.
going to metagame, some people are going to, and so what we do is I feel like we can facilitate an atmosphere that allows that to happen in a somewhat structured way that still allows enough room for people to explore, right? And it's really, to me, the best part of D&D, and we talked about this. What are we going to talk about today? What's the best part of playing D&D? And for me, it's the interactive storytelling. It's the fact that we start from like you say, start from one sentence maybe,
Mhm.
and then by the end of the next 2 hours, 2.5 hours, we've told a story that did not exist and
Yeah.
cannot be retold the same way with different people. It would
Mhm.
always be different.
Yeah. That's I'm very much the same way. It's when it comes to D&D, the thing that I have always loved about it is just the storytelling aspect to it. There is nothing like it that I have ever experienced. And it's just it's such a freeing thing to just be able to sit around a table with a group of people and tell a story that is so personal and so real to all of you that it drives people to emotions. And that to me is where it is. As a DM, I love nothing more than to see my players sweat, to see them worry, to see glee just brimming in their eyes, And to watch all these emotions play out on their faces, um it's such a fulfilling thing to me, just watching, just watching, these stories come alive in their heads and in front of them.
And you
I
can't
mean,
help but learn something about each other. And that's the great thing too. It's a great way
mhm,
to become friends. And I think back to like one of the first things we were talking about, which was like our own personal real life time management. Like, how do you find time to do these things? Well, how do you find time to sit down and watch a movie? Or how do you
yeah,
find time to go to the movies, but like sit in front of your TV set and watch a movie? This is my television. This is my
mhm,
movies. I'm
yeah,
not saying I don't watch some television, but not nearly as much as I used to. And to me, like, have you ever seen like someday video yourself watching television?
mhm,
It's really scary. The- my face goes completely blank. I look like I'm hypnotized, a zombie,
yeah,
catatonic, whatever. My eyes are moving, but like,
mhm,
I'm focused. And then, but at a D&D table, that's not the case at all. There's
yeah,
laughter. There's moments of like, big inhalations and shock. There's people writing stuff down like, oh, I got to remember that goes on it. That has to go on a t-shirt. Like there's moments of just shared joy and angst and
yeah.
and just fun. It's that drama, and it's so much more interactive for me than maybe watching anything other than maybe a live sporting event on television.
And I think a big part of that lends itself to the fact that D&D is a collective hobby. I mean, sure, you can spend, hours by yourself theory crafting and world building and doing all kinds of different things, but at its core, D&D is a communal hobby. You're sitting down with at least one or two other people, whereas so many hobbies out there, you're doing a lot of it on your own. Like if you are building Legos, okay, that is a hobby that can theoretically be done entirely by yourself. If you are learning how to yo-yo, or if you're learning how to build a computer, you might have a community that you can reference, but in a lot of cases you're going to be able to do that hobby by yourself. But when it comes to D&D, you are throwing yourself into a hobby that requires that human connection, that requires that back and forth. And I think that's the greatest thing about it, is because it is a hobby that strives and pushes people into those human connections. And this way, you're not just kind of in a glazed, disconnected moment, just watching moving pictures. You are having that conversation. There is that dialogue that is building, and that's the beautiful thing about it, is that that's where life grows. I mean, we as humans, we thrive on communication. We are a communal species.
It's the truth. And it's so funny you mentioned that. That was like a New Year's resolution of mine last year. Was, so 2023, January 1st, I like to make New Year's resolutions. And one of mine was I'm gonna start building communities because
Hmm,
I felt like what the isolation that had come from the previous years, I felt like, it's time. It's time to like get people together doing fun, positive things.
yeah.
And the Dungeons and Dragons thing arose, the Adventure League opportunity arose in about the middle of the year, a little earlier than that of that year. And so I've been doing that ever since. And we have built communities and invited new people into those communities, which is amazing. So the example I'm going to give, about a month and a half ago, I ran Candlekeep Mysteries, the first
Ooh,
one, which was extra dimensional spaces, right? The
okay.
joy of extra dimensional spaces is what the first
Yes.
chapter is called. So I ran that a couple times because I like to run the modules at least 2 times back to back so that I assimilate it. Now I
Hmm.
have it in my back pocket. Now if somebody says, "Oh my God, we need a DM," boom. Okay, well I can run this. I just did it twice, so it's I
Yeah.
can do it. I don't even need a map. I know the map. So but I was the point of this is there was a brand new player, and she, I found out later, we talked afterwards, was told by her psychologist that, go out and like play a game, like go
Hmm.
to a game store or like a place, to like, socialize. So
Yeah.
I didn't know this, but so I'm running this game, and the lady, there's in the module, there are two automatons who kind of like take care of the mansion. And
Hmm.
so the players come upon them in the kitchen, but there are cats that randomly like walk around the mansion. And so it turns out like she's really into cats, like she owns a couple cats. And so she wanted to pick up this cat. And so she does. So I make her make a like an animal handling check,
Yeah.
literally handling an animal. So she picks it up, and she goes to feed it something, and she rolls horribly.
Oh
So
no.
I do graded rolling. So like
Oh yeah. Yep.
for me, it's not just pass fail, right? If you roll
Thank
a,
you.
yeah, go
Thank you. I wish more
talk about
DMs
that.
would do that.
Yeah. Yeah. So like if it takes a 12 to make this cat your friend, you roll a 3, you just stuck your finger in its ear. You didn't kill it, but like, you wanted to pet it, but accidentally
Sure.
your index finger went into its ear, and now it's like, like,
Yeah.
and it jumps and runs away from you. And she's like, oh, and I could see the emotion on her face
Yeah.
as she said, oh, as if a real cat had done
And
that.
run away. Yes.
So the next time she made another check with the cat, I just magically it passed,
Yeah.
and then she had this cat that followed her around for the rest of the adventure, and she was very happy about that.
Ah,
So,
beautiful.
you get to have these human moments,
Yeah.
acts of kindness, and and experience those defeats with other people too, and help each other through it. And I
Yep.
think, that's more of that is what I want to see in real life. So role playing these ideas in fantasy life can translate into noble behavior in real life, I think.
Yeah.
It's like be
Yeah.
a paladin in real life. I want to make a t-shirt, for my channel. It just says Pittsburgh Pat, be the paladin,
Yeah.
you
Ah,
know?
see that, and that is such a way that I've been with my niece and nephew. My niece and nephew, they are 12 and 13, and I've been playing D&D. I mean, I've been playing D&D for 10 years now, so they are very well aware of it. And uh about 2 years ago, they were like, "Hey, we want to play." And I mean, it was even before that, and we played this Hero Kids game,
Oh
and
yeah.
then we also got into I have the books around here, the D&D Adventure Club,
Hmm.
and it was something that I could sit down with them, with the Hero Kids, and kind of incorporate some of the other stuff, and watching them flourish into this, because my niece has a speech impediment, and it's just that she has a tough time saying some words and a bit of a stutter. And watching her play, she is so verbal and so vocal that she puts herself out so much more to try and talk things out, because in those moments, I think she's realizing that there's no consequence to her stuttering. In real life, when she's talking to people, she feels that, emotion behind it, where she knows that she's supposed to avoid these stutters, she's supposed to avoid these impediments. And in this, it's just that, like, she allows herself to live into it, and she gets past it, and she talks so much, and she comes up with these great ideas that, it allows her to have that safe space to just be who she is.
Sure.
And it's such a great thing. And watching my nephew, who he has such a creative, analytical mind, that he would be a great DM because of the stuff that he comes up with, because in his mind, he he sees the stuff that is going on in the adventure, And for example, there was one where they had to release a mouse out into the wilderness that was eating all the cheese in the basement of this old woman. And they get out there, and he, as they were going to open the bag, he goes, he looks at me and he goes, it would be really funny if we open up the bag and like the mouse had escaped because the jar we put it in broke and it like ate through the bag. And I'm like, you know what, that's exactly what happens. You look, you open it up, there's a bit of broken glass, there's a hole in your bag, and you know what else is missing? The map you guys had for your next adventure that fell out of the bag with the mouse. And so I was like just listening to him talk about this, I'm like, this kid's gonna make a great DM. He's gonna be a great team leader one day.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And I love the fact that you go with it. So like, when a PC, a player character has an idea at the table that is awesome, it happens.
Yeah.
It just happens. Like I don't, you know what I mean? I'll find a way to make it happen.
Mm-hmm.
You want to jump on the back of that dragon? You're level 1. I'm running Horde of the Dragon Queen, right? I'm running like, greenest in flames. Do you want to jump on an adult blue dragon that's spitting lightning at castle battlements? Sure, make them roll. Make them
absolutely.
roll.
Absolutely.
Like, okay, kid, let's see what happens here. But no, that's fun. I think the other thing about just like the mechanics of D&D, like I do dungeon turns a lot of times.
Okay.
Especially if I have young players that are really over talking each other. They get excited and everybody's over talking each other. So I'll be okay, dungeon turns. So I'll go in the circle. And it's good discipline for children, but also for adults to learn how to take their turn.
Yeah.
And actively listen while somebody else is taking their turn.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And that's not something that I find a lot of adults do. A lot of adults like to, I don't know, we get drawn into the trap of if we're the one who says the thing the loudest or the last, we win.
Yep.
Whereas I learned by listening. I've got a lot of ideas that I want to express, but so do other people. And maybe we should let that happen too, So that's kind of cool.
Yeah, no, that is the case. I mean, I play, my 2 online games have 6 players each, so I know that that talking over is such a thing. And you know what? Funny enough, in a lot of cases, otherwise it's the opposite. I have players that want to talk and they want to share their ideas, but they feel like they're going to be stepping on people's toes, so they reserve themselves from it, or they don't want to put themselves out there because they don't want to look a fool, or say something that isn't the right answer. And it's like, just say anything, say something, do something. The game moves when you guys move.
That's right. That's right. It's we who propel the game. And this has been an amazing preliminary conversation. I'm so glad that we did this today. And
yeah, absolutely.
I hope we do some more of this, because this is a lot of fun, I think. And I think it's useful for new players and new DMs to listen to people with with more experience. You have 10 years experience. I teach it, and to generate ideas and to realize that their ideas are right. They just, your ideas are right about this game. This game is big enough. It's vast, and we want to hear your ideas too. So put those in the comments and let us know.
Yeah, absolutely.
And thanks so much today, Lukas. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. And I hope we can do more of these.
All right. Sounds good.
All right. Peace out.
Peace out.